Welcome back to Sundust, Short Horror Stories, the podcast where we unearth true tales of terror from the past. Short, chilling stories that linger long after the lights go out. I'm your host, and tonight's episode comes from a listener whose grandfather carried a haunting memory from his childhood in the 1930s. It's a reminder that danger can hide in the most innocent places, like a handful of dirt by the river. Settle in as we share Watch Out for the Worms. My grandfather lived a fascinating life, full of stories that stuck with him forever. This one, though, it haunted him the most. He was about 7 years old at the time, which would place it around 1930, deep in the Great Depression. He and his friends were poor coal mining kids from the hills, family scraping by in the shadow of the mines, with little money for anything extra. One sunny afternoon, a group of them headed to the nearby river for some fishing. The water wasn't too deep, but it rushed fast over small rapids, bubbling and sparkling under the trees. No store-bought gear for these boys. They fashioned homemade poles from branches and string and bait. They dug their own worms from the damp riverbank soil. Childhood fishing experiences in Robbins. They spread out along the edge, dropping their gear and plunging their small hands into the cool, rich dirt. One of the older boys had brought along his little brother, just 5 years old, eager to help, digging enthusiastically with the rest. After a while, the little one came running over, proud as could be, clutching a handful of tiny, wriggling worms. But he was whining, tugging at his fingers. "They're biting me," he complained, holding them out to his brother. The older boy leaned in for a closer look, and his face went pale. Those weren't worms at all. They were baby snakes, small, slender newborns that must have blended perfectly with the earthworms in the soil. Panic erupted. The tiny snakes had already bitten the boy's hands multiple times in his tight grip. Back then, far from any hospital and with no quick way to get help, there was nothing they could do. Tragically, the 5-year-old collapsed right there on the riverbank and died before anyone could save him. Juvenile copperhead, snake high-res, stock photography, and images alamy. My grandfather remembered it vividly his whole life, the screams, the helplessness, the way the day turned from excitement to horror in an instant. It scarred him deeply. A stark lesson from a time when kids roamed wild and nature didn't forgive mistakes. Many believe baby venomous snakes like young copperheads common in those Appalachian regions pack a more concentrated venom than adults, making their bites especially deadly for a small child. It must have terrified him watching his friend's little brother slip away over something so innocent as digging for bait. So heed the warning my grandfather passed down: be careful out there. Watch closely what you pick up from the dirt. And if you're too young, always bring older folks along when you go fishing. A simple childhood adventure turned deadly. Proof that the scariest stories often hide in everyday life. Thanks to our listener for sharing this piece of family history. If this tale made you double-check the ground next time you're outdoors, hit that like button. Subscribe to Sundust Short Horror Stories for more true chills each week, and leave a review. It helps us dig up even darker gems. Share your own family horror stories in the comments. You might hear them here next. Until the shadows creep in again. Stay safe out there.